Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Faster my good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Monday, 5th of June 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news in the Isle of Man. A background to that news in sport and business and Sea Watch, travel updates and the newsmakers in person this evening. Lovely weather for the TT, bad news for farmers, rebalancing the Isle of Man's population, new tax laws on the way, and the Island Plan needs to kick in. Look back at the weekend races and fewer arrests than usual, say the constabulary.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Faster my Siobhan Fletcher.
Faster my. Police are appealing for witnesses to a road traffic collision involving a motorcycle on the Mountain Road shortly before 11:30am today. Anyone who witnessed the incident is asked to contact police headquarters. The Manx National Farmers Union is warning that the island can't afford to take food producers for granted. Milling wheat growers are said to be despondent since the loss of Ramsey Bakery last year and now the threat of continued dry weather in the weeks ahead. Douglas Coast Guard was called to rescue 3 people who became stuck at the Tower of Refuge last night. First responders were diverted from their routine TT evening patrol to assist the individuals back to the beach after they became cut off by the tide. Further afield, BBC and Boots have been caught up by a cyber attack. Employees' personal data, including bank and contact details, have been exposed to hackers. 2 more barges are going to be used to house asylum seekers, with the UK Prime Minister insisting his immigration plan is working. Rishi Sunak says small channel boat crossings are down by a fifth since last year. And one of Britain's oldest chimpanzees has been celebrating her 50th birthday. Coco from Whipsnade Zoo in Bedfordshire celebrated the half-century milestone yesterday. They're your headlines. News at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goromaya, thank you, Siobhan, from the Ronaldsway Met Office. There's no wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea. State of sea is smooth or slight, and the 3-day weather tonight, dry, partially cloudy, plenty of evening sunshine, light breezes, overnight minimum 12 Celsius for Tuesday. Tomorrow, dry and sunny with a light easterly breeze, daylight maximum 20 Celsius, down to 12 through the night. Into Wednesday, Jacrane, dry and sunny. The easterly wind will start to pick up, and top temperature 21 Celsius. Tide's still on the way out. Low waters at 26 minutes past 7. Sunset 10:15 tonight. High water 13 minutes past 1 a.m. Sunrise 12 minutes before 5 tomorrow. And the morning low tide at 19 minutes to 8.
The Manx Glass and Glazing showroom is currently closed for TT and will reopen on Monday the 12th of June.
Well, this gorgeous weather might be perfect for TT racers and visitors, but the 3-week-long stretch of sunny, dry conditions is a concern for Manx farmers. It's feared another week or so without rain could have a serious impact on the yearly yield of milling wheat. Lewis Foster's been talking to the Manx NFU Crops Chairman David Brew.
I don't think you're at crisis point yet for crops, but that could very soon be reached. If it doesn't rain really in the next sort of 7 to 10 days, I think you'll start to see crops starting to suffer quite badly. And once they do, even if it rains after that point, crops really won't recover because you'll have a potential yield that can be achieved, and that declines if a crop gets sort of stunted in its growth cycle. To a certain extent, the arable sector and the crop sector here on the island is sort of already in crisis point, obviously, with the closure closure of Ramsey Bakery and the knock-on effect on the cereal sector here. And of course, if we have a serious drought in the next few weeks, which is entirely possible because we seem to have extremes of weather at the moment. Obviously, we are suffering some form of climate change, but at the moment on the ground, we're not exactly too sure how to cope with it, to be fair, and what repercussions that will have going forward either. There's been very little really in positive action coming out of government, although we are on ongoing talking to them, obviously. Food security for the island is a very important issue, and I think politicians really need to take it more seriously. But for the holiday makers and the visitors over for the TT, I mean, the weather is fantastic. But these changes that we've seen is having an effect on the cost of living and food inflation. It's something that people shouldn't take for granted, really.
History was made this weekend in a spectacular series of opening races for TT 2023. Here's Manx Radio sports editor Rob Pritchard.
As had been the case throughout all of qualifying last week, conditions were perfect across Saturday and Sunday for the first three races of 2023 on the Snaefell Mountain course. First up was the Supersport Race 1 on Saturday afternoon, and it was a dominant victory for Michael Dunlop, who took his 22nd TT victory.
Yeah, it was good there. It's a good race, and I must say, felt real good. Bike felt real good. Good to see a bit of speed on the old oil yet, and thanks to all the lads. It's hard work, and the bike's still winning.
An epic battle behind Dunlop saw Peter Hickman finish second, just 0.34 seconds ahead of Dean Harrison in third. Into Saturday evening, and it was the turn of the first sidecar race. Favourites Ben and Tom Birchall unofficially broke their own sidecar lap record in qualifying, and this time in the race they would make certain of rewriting the record books, breaking the 120 mile an hour mark whilst taking victory.
That is like having a kebab on your way home after a big night.
With chilli sauce?
With everything on it, yeah. Thank you to everyone out there, my boards, and of course Harry, my number 2 spanner, man. I can't thank my lads enough, Jim. And there's one more who's not here, and he should be here, but we're thinking of him, and it's for him as well. It's Ed. He's been with me since 2009. Love you all, thank you.
The Mansfield duo finished 24 seconds ahead of runners-up Pete Founds and Jevon Walmsley, with John Holden and Maxime Vasseur taking third after the Crow brothers retired during the race. Into Sunday, and just one race, but it was a big one, the 6-lap Superbike race, and it was Dunlop again who took the top prize as he went on to take his second victory of the racing fortnight to go level with John McGuinness on 23 TT wins in a race where Peter Hickman set a new Superbike lap record to finish second.
People have doubted me, and I can't say enough to Stuart and Steve. They had faith in me, and Steve just kept pushing me, getting the best out of the bike and telling me, just keep at it. It's been such a hard push, you know what I mean? And John, you know, been a fantastic ambassador for the sport, and still is. He still is, and to be even, I don't think a record or anything, but to be alongside somebody like John, it's an honour, really.
Today is a well-earned day of rest for all the riders. The schedule will resume tomorrow with the Superstock TT Race 1 and Super Twin TT Race 1.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
The Manx government says a separate policy to tackle the Isle of Man's population challenges isn't required. Council of Ministers has responded to a Tynwald Committee's report into rebalancing the Isle of Man's population ahead of it being discussed at this month's sitting. The story from Sean Cowper.
The Tynwald Select Committee on Population Rebalancing published its report earlier this year, making 15 recommendations which will be debated in Tynwald later this month. Those recommendations included the introduction of shared parental leave, doing more to encourage the development of nightlife, and reviewing maternity allowances. However, the Council of Ministers has now published its response to the committee's findings, which include 11 amendments to the recommendations. Comin states a separate population policy isn't required and that shared parental leave is already being dealt with under the new Employment Amendment Bill. The committee calls for government to facilitate and encourage the development of schemes to address gaps in lifestyle offering, but Comin will instead ask Tynwald to note that work is being done as part of the economic strategy and Manx Development Corporation. The report also sought for the Department for Enterprise's Locate team to make efforts to redress population balance, but Comin's amendment seeks for Tynwald to support efforts already being made. The committee's original recommendations and government amendments will be considered when Tynwald Sheffield sits from the 20th of June.
The first TT weekend has passed and the constabularies say it's seen fewer arrests this year as compared to previous ones. PC Louise Kenyuk says people are behaving themselves where it's needed, policing and educating residents and visitors.
It's been nice. I think nice is the word we're going to use today, shall we? It has. We look over the years and there's different patterns and we see how it goes. But this weekend, whether it's a combination of the weather, the scheduling, whatever's going on, it's been a real nice weekend. There has been arrests, which we're not surprised about, but those arrests are for a lower level thing, shall we say, because I think I said earlier in the week that we want to go down the lowest level. And if people are not listening to our engagement, then we're going to enforce it, because by doing that, it's reducing the more serious offences. So we've had low level and we're taking zero tolerance on them. In relation to the patterns of arrests, we are seeing small patterns, shall we say, which I think can be nipped in the bud quite quickly. People are over-consuming alcohol, and with that comes obviously what we keep saying about knowing your limits. We will have discretion, we advise, we educate, but you know what, if you've gone too far, we're going to have to arrest you so we can put the message through. We also have some people obviously using drugs, shall we say, small, low levels for their own use, but this also has to stop, because we do have zero tolerance on the island. It is illegal. And we will deal with you accordingly, which links into boat checks again. We are still doing our Operation Fortress boat checks. We're checking boats coming in, we're checking boats going out. So if you think that you can bring something into the island, please think again. We're trying to keep our borders safe and secure to keep our community safe. So please, just come and enjoy yourselves, but don't be bringing anything with you that you shouldn't be. We have 20 cells, and the cells are not filling every night, shall we say. So that's a good sign. There has been years before where we've had the cells overflow, we've had to open up the other stations to deal with them. So no, we are not full to capacity.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Mothership Ben McCree departed Heysham at 2:02. She's safely into Douglas, got in about half an hour ago on the link span, departing this evening at 8:15 back to Heysham, arriving there at just after midnight. The overnight departure 2:15 back to Douglas at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. High-speed craft Manannan left Douglas at 5:02. She was in Liverpool about 4:45, departing Liverpool at 6:15 tonight, back to Douglas at 9:15. There's also a departure from Douglas at 10:45 tonight to Liverpool, returning there at 0:45, leaving Liverpool at 2:45 a.m, back to Douglas at 5:45 tomorrow morning. And the morning departures, Manannan leaves Douglas at 7:15 for Dublin. Ben McCree departs Douglas at 8:45 for Heysham.
Like the Steam Packet on Facebook for the latest sailing information.
The Manx government needs to consider speeding up initiatives to drive economic growth if it wants to achieve the goals it set out for itself in our island plan. So says the Chamber of Commerce, which says it's interested in the potential of a new Biosphere Innovation Gateway, a project which has been submitted to the Department for Enterprise. President Crystal McDonald says defining special economic zones would be a good idea.
This is particularly interesting when you look, because it's so closely aligned with the goals of the economic strategy. There's provision for a large number of housing projects, there's provision for university in there, there's green power. A lot of that stuff aligns extremely well with the island plan and the economic strategy. And when you actually look at the people behind it, yes, it's HM, and he's got a reputation on the island, but if you separate him out of it and look at the other people involved, you've got someone who was very senior on the commercial side of Canary Wharf. You've got other people who are very experienced in these sorts of projects. We've been campaigning for a long time for an expansion of higher education on the islands. We've been talking about trying to get more housing on the island, and green power is a constant problem over here for many businesses, because they can't say that their energy is sourced in an environmentally renewable way, which when you're dealing with multinational companies who have got huge ESG regulations, the Isle of Man is a bit of a sore thumb in that respect. So from our point of view, this actually ticks a whole load of boxes. And again, it all comes back to the feasibility. Would this actually work? Can we get it off the ground? So trying to understand, does this align well with the actual economic strategy? Does it work with the island plan? Does it work with business and what we're trying to achieve? And we need to look at projects like this and take them seriously, because We're 2 years into the economic strategy, basically, in the Island Plan, and we've really not seen a huge amount delivered. Our members are becoming increasingly frustrated with this. They've told us that. We've got survey results which tell us that they don't really have a great deal of confidence in the government's ability to deliver on the strategy. So we need to find ways to actually help support the delivery of that.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 5:45, Apple shares surged as markets opened, putting the world's largest company on track to close at a record high as it prepares to unveil a mixed reality headset at its annual software developer conference. The launch will see Apple make its first big move into a new product category since the introduction of the Apple Watch 9 years ago. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. British Airways has been fined $1.1 million by the United States government over claims it failed to pay refunds for cancelled flights during the pandemic. The US Department of Transportation says the airline hadn't provided timely refunds to passengers for abandoned or rescheduled flights to and from the country. It says it received more than 1,200 complaints about BA, who rejected the claim, saying it had acted lawfully at all times. According to the Transport Department, from March to November 2020, BA's website instructed consumers to contact the carrier by phone to discuss refund options, including for flights the carrier had cancelled or significantly changed. The consumers were unable to get through to customer service agents when calling the carrier for several months during the period because BA failed to maintain adequate functionality of its customer service phone lines, said the department.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK markets fell on Monday today as traders digested the US debt ceiling agreement. In Europe, traders are still analysing the impact of Thursday's inflation data. US stocks rose as investors search for clues as to the Fed's interest rate stance. Gold rebounded and oil surged higher after Saudi Arabia said it had cut production by 1 million barrels a day next month. The numbers now from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. The FTSE 100 down 0.1% at 7,600. The DAX in Frankfurt closed down just over 0.5% at 15,963. Currently New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial is down 0.4% at 33,635. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index is up just over 0.4% at 13,297. The S&P 500 in Chicago up almost 0.2% at 4,289. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1, 24.1 cents, €1, 15.9 cents, and 23 South African rand, 96 cents. In commodities, gold is up almost 0.5% at $1,956 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up just over 1.1% at $77.07.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Fast to my good evening, 12 minutes before 6 this Monday evening. Work on new tax laws is ongoing after previous attempts to pass legislation were delayed by COVID. A temporary taxation order can come into force immediately after being passed in Tynwald, but has to receive royal assent within 2 years. After this deadline was missed, the member for Treasury, Bill Henderson, MLC, explains why the income tax bill is now going through Tynwald's branches.
Just to be sure, and with an abundance of caution, it was deemed that really we should reenact or reconfirm what we already put through to ensure the applicability of this bill and, more importantly, the retrospectivity of this bill over the time period in question, so everything runs smoothly and that there's no potential hiccups in the background as we go down where a loophole's discovered or some such problem. These are very, very handy instruments certainly for the likes of Treasury to use, say from a budget point of view in February every year, where we've got various changes made to the income tax regulations and so on because of the budget, then you need to act fairly swiftly to bring those changes in. So this is one legislative route that actually achieves the quickness or fleetness of foot, if you like, to get your legislative steps in place. And certainly from an international perspective, international standards, and particularly financial standards, can change rapidly. And it's especially useful in those circumstances where the Isle of Man has been and is under the microscope from organisations such as the OECD and the EU Code of Conduct Group and Moneyval, so that if there's recommendations made or we wish to make changes or raise our standards to meet new approved regimes, then we can do it fairly rapidly and within the time scales that those international organisations would expect from us.
Manx Radio Sport.
Faster by Rhiann Evans.
Faster Mike, good evening. Well, away from TT news, local man Eric Corkish is competing in a number of international golf competitions over the next 4 weeks. He recently competed in the European Disabled Golf Association's Johnny Ray Classic in challenging conditions, but Corkish will have plenty more shots to show off his golfing calibre throughout June as he's set to compete in the Ping Disabled Golf Championship, the Edgar Welsh Open and the England Golf for the Disabled Championships. He told me what he learnt from the Johnny Ray Classic that he'll be taking into the other competitions.
This golf course I've just been on, you've got trees bigger than I've ever seen, and they're in the middle of the fairway. You really do need to learn on your practice round so Luke can see what's there and maybe mark it down in a book so that you know when you come to your actual round that where all the hazards are.
Caitlin Adshead has been showing off her motorcycling prowess this weekend in the European Championships in Italy. She started strong, placing third in round one and was also the first British woman to finish. Round two was a bit more difficult. It saw Caitlin come in eighth following a heavy jolt on her bike during lap one, which made the second lap a bit more difficult. Next up for Caitlin is the World Championships later this summer. And Manx Powerlifting is looking for volunteers to help out at its championships. The competition is running over the 2nd and 3rd of September. Details on how to be involved can be found on this story at manxradio.com.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound from Ronaldsway, the 5:25 Loganair from Manchester landed on time. Next inbound is the 5:45 Aer Lingus inbound from Dublin. However, that's delayed, won't be in until 6:25. Then it's the 10:08 Loganair from London City on time, the 5:08 returning patient transfer Loganair from Liverpool on time, and the 9:25 EasyJet from Gatwick showing on time. Outbound tonight, the 5 o'clock EasyJet to Bristol's delayed until about now, should have gone just about now. The 5:30 EasyJet to Liverpool should be going about now too as well. 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool is on time. The 6:15 Aer Lingus back to Dublin is delayed until 6:50, and then last outbound tonight is the 9:05, fingers crossed, EasyJet to London Gatwick. On the roads, the mountain road still continues to be closed after that incident earlier on today, and elsewhere in Derby, the Ballymena road has got phased closures for water main replacement.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre. Spread your payments interest-free. Get more with Quayside. Update. Brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
Police officers are working with Manx authorities and key partners to help people who need most help. PC Louise Kenyuk says the role is about gaining trust, and this starts with children and young people. Our local democracy reporter Emma Draper has been speaking to PC Kenyuk.
What we have is we have neighbourhood community officers. They are based centrally in Eastern Douglas here in the city, and we have them north, south, and we have them west. Us in Eastern, there's 4 of us, and what we've done is we've divided the borough into into 4 areas. So my area, Williston, Conkyberry, leading down Broadway and onto the Prom. My colleague Lisa Fitzgerald, she has Onken, and then my other colleagues have the other areas. So it works really well because we all have our boundaries with each other where there's a crossover, but then also our areas. In Williston, my job really is to really get into the community, to know the people, to gain trust, I suppose, both ways, and to find out what the needs are of that community. I link in with the schools, the 2 primary schools, which I love. I mean, that's just a pure joy and a pleasure. From working with the young people, you build up that trust early on. It's what I say about get them to run to me as opposed to from me, and they get that trusted person. If you gain the trust of kids, you gain the parents a little bit. Building on that, we have the local MHKs, and then we have the councillors, Janet Tominey, who's just stepped down as mayor. So we have all these key partners in our areas, and we use each other to make it, I suppose, a safer, better place. So I have a house in Williston that are owned and leased by Douglas Housing, so I work very closely with their allocated housing officer, and it is all about trying to solve problems and improve things. We have a set education package that runs from reception to primary to high school. What I've done in Williston is there's a young nursery, St Joseph Nursery, so I work with those teeny tiny tots, so they get to know a police officer. They then feed into Williston Primary School, so you have the consistency of the young people and the parents. Williston Primary School then feeds into my high schools, which is St Ninian's, so you have that consistency from the teeny tiny tots to the school leavers.
That's it for Update tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Siobhan Fletcher, also to our producer Rhiann Evans. Lots more stories at manxradio.com, including the infrastructure minister saying that further improvements could be made to lighting on the runway at Ronaldsway if the funding's made available. Chris Thomas, MHK, says following recent improvements to the instrument landing system, more advanced versions of the system would enable pilots to land at Ronaldsway in lower levels of visibility, but it's something that would need financial support from the government. That and more stories at manxradio.com, all the weather, the webcams, and remember, on AM 1368, on DAB and the digital channels, the best biking station in the world is currently in session till TT wraps up this Saturday. That's it. Updates back tomorrow at 5:30.
WINT